Hello guys, this is Flag coming at you from the sub-basement of HelixxVR headquarters, and today I'll be reviewing SkyLight by the developer McNeill. SkyLight is a VR turn-based tactics game that will challenge players to step into the role of a strategic mastermind. With SkyLight's galactic world at their fingertips, players must orchestrate their fleet of ships to outwit and overwhelm their enemy. Immersive, focused, and highly strategic, players will need to customize their fleet to plan, maneuver, and ultimately achieve victory by destroying their opponent's capital ships. Challenging players to make full use of their own capital ships while also safeguarding them from the enemy, SkyLight puts a strong emphasis on strategic decision-making while requiring true mental agility as the game unfolds. Each turn culminates in cinematic and spectacular space battles as SkyLight navigates an unexpected dynamic between thoughtful, carefully plotted turn-based gameplay on the one hand, and real-time action-packed battles on the other. Or so the description reads. SkyLight is a VR and desktop title that supports the HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and Windows Mixed Reality, along with full track touch controller support, along with keyboard and mouse, allowing for seated, standing, and full room scale gameplay. This title was originally released on January 12, 2017 for the Gear VR, and again in December 28, 2017 on Steam, which was ported for the Vive, the Rift, and the mixed reality headsets. Since this title includes a desktop mode, I decided I would start there. I usually play this mode first when it's available in a VR title as a gauge to compare how well they translate from one to the next. When I first started SkyLight on the monitor, I was greeted by the game's UI, which, like any other desktop game, is mouse-driven, but what is unlike any other title I've run across was the unorthodox method at which the mouse cursor behaved. Moving the mouse made the UI turn in the fashion of a 360 video, causing me to accidentally click on what my cursor was over rather than the intended dot reticle in the screen center. I could easily dismiss this as my own folly, but the design was clearly not intended for PC desktop use. Upon entering the game, I chose Campaign as my first option to play. I then chose the normal difficulty mission. This continued on to choosing your fleet menu, which was quite small on the monitor, but it was usable. I chose my ships, which were 2 capital ships and 4 non-cap types, and entered the first mission, which was initially set to be 6 vs 2 scenario in my favor. Upon starting the campaign, the tutorial explained everything that I needed to do and did this in a, vague but doable fashion. I would click on one of my ships and glowing blue holographic dots would fill the room in a grid-like pattern, and I would choose one to mark the waypoint for that vessel. I did this for each ship in the fleet and hit confirm to set the moves and end my turn. I continued this process over and over for around 10 minutes, wondering when, if ever, I would run into the enemy's fleet. In my own mind, I was thinking there must be a fog of war feature, and this was the reason I wasn't seeing anything but my own fleet and the dots. I continued to play this round until I had moved a ship to every available dot on the board, which concluded with no change in effect or spatial environment. This is when I decided to restart the campaign, reread the mission objective, and just in case I had missed anything important. The mission description stated I was ordered to return to Earth and be put on trial for some crime. It also showed that it was a 6 vs 0 mission, and not the 6 vs 2 that I initially thought it said. Once I entered the mission, I imagined I was looking for something representing the Earth, and that was my objective. This went on for another 10 minutes when I finally decided out of frustration to call it quits. As I attempted to end the session and close the app, I came to the realization that there was no way to abort the game by proper means such as, an exit function in the UI, so Alt F4 it was. I would have tested the desktop mode further, but there was no way for me to progress as I needed to complete this first mission to continue the game as the next one was locked. An hour or so later, I decided I would do a run in VR with the Vive, hoping that the game was built around VR and that the dev just botched the desktop mode. I was pleasantly surprised at how much better everything looked. You start out in a starship with a holographic projector in the ceiling above you. The UI even seemed to be made quite well for use with the touch controllers, and everything was quite sharp. I loaded the first mission again to see if there was something that I was just not able to see on the flat mode. Immediately, I noticed that the first mission was again showing 6 vs 2, and with doubt that it would work, I chose it anyway. This time the campaign mode loaded, and to my right there were 2 enemy vessels. I easily destroyed them both without so much as thinking about it. The hologram vector 3D graphic style was nice and it was fun, even though there was no effort put into the completion of that stage. Continuing on to the second mission, the difficulty was a bit more satisfying and it was interesting to watch the battle play out. I did the following 2 missions after that, and this is where the monotony took hold. The difficulty upscale seemed to be non-existent along with any strategy in the enemy's actions. It appeared as if the AI was just set to run and gun, shooting the nearest vessel rather than assessing the threat level of the vessels within range. For example, I could have both of my capital ships firing upon the enemy's capital ship and then send a mostly harmless frigate behind it, and instead of the capital ship keeping its shields facing my line of fire, it would turn, exposing its unprotected rear towards my ship's main guns, setting its own priority to chase and kill a vessel that has no hope of causing it harm. I repeated the same tactic for every match following this one and completed most of the normal mode before deciding to try the harder difficulties. At this time I was not thinking anything bad about the title other than my desktop experience. I excused the overly easy difficulty mode that was for some reason called normal instead of extra super simple mode, since your fleet always outnumbers that of the AI. I figured it was made to be easy, allowing those players who are new to turn-based or real-time strategy games to learn the basics without being killed every round. I then moved to the hard difficulty, which showed equal fleet size on both sides for each mission. I thought for sure this one would get challenging, but instead smashed through each mission using the same tactic and the same loadout, in many cases pre-planning almost all my moves on the first run, destroying the enemy's capital ships with no more difficulty than the normal mode. I found that the simple formula of using only carrier capital ships along with frigates was all I needed. I would start every round by launching all the missiles on board at one enemy capital ship, destroying it in the first turn, and then focusing all energy on remaining capital ships. In some instances, I would target 2 capital ships with missiles, bringing both down to the point of where spitting on them would cause them to explode. As soon as I finished hard mode, I went on to play the hardest difficulty where, well, the enemy always outnumbers you. Again, I found that the same equation I used on the previous 2 worked here, except for one change that I made to my fleet loadout, which was substituting my frigates with bombers and effortlessly laying waste to the enemy in every mission, all the way to the end. Again, as I went to leave the game, there was no built-in function to exit and I had to use Steam VR to close it. This issue is not limited to SkyLight, as I find many developers for VR titles somehow forget the most basic function, which should by all means be set up in the UI at the very beginning of development. Other than the graphical template and base mechanics of the title, there was a complete lack of anything in the form of strategy. There was also a complete lack of any story worth telling in the campaign mode. This was quite disappointing considering the missions seemed to have descriptions with set objectives, but these objectives were meaningless and added nothing to the gameplay. Mission after mission, nothing seemed to change aside from the enemy formation and its fleet choices, and even the skirmish mode showed no difference from the others aside from, well, me being able to choose the enemy's fleet. There was also nothing in the way of environment such as asteroids or other such space junk, as every mission was exactly the same to the one prior, with the only difference being the ships chosen and a fleet formation. As for locomotion in SkyLight, well, there is none. You can use the touchpad to change the angle of how you see the battlefield, but if you want to change your position, you'll need to either take advantage of your play space, or if you don't have adequate room to move about, you can go to the menu and change the XYZ using an arrow button system that was carried on from the Gear VR version. And it's not very intuitive to use with the motion controllers, and if you happen to adjust the floor height by mistake, you will not be able to adjust it back down using the down arrow, since it grays out and becomes inactive upon pressing the up arrow. This is a very poor design for PC VR motion controls, and there should have been some form of teleport or, hell, just a function to grab space and move it around you to get the position you desire or are most comfortable with. Graphics and sound in the game, while nothing to brag about, are more than acceptable for this type of game. I've seen several times where it is described as being an, Ender's Game in VR, and based solely on its physical aesthetics, this is not a far-fetched comparison. The holographic vector style looks good here, and the effects aren't bad either. The music is a good match for the title, and the quality is good as well. It is also a plus that I can adjust the volume or simply turn the music off, as I prefer, hearing the game sounds without repetitive music drowning them out. As for the voiceover, this is done well, but might as well not have been included in the first place since it's only used for the tutorial, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember hearing it again throughout the entire game. As far as bugs are concerned, I have only run into the unplayable first mission in desktop mode mentioned earlier, and also one in multiplayer where the opponent would outnumber me by 5 or more vessels in each category. I did not feel the need to test this title for more bugs, as I had no intention to play it in desktop mode again. Aside from that, there are a multitude of design issues here. The AI is all but inert in the sense that it's set to attack only the closest vessel and has no real strategy to counter or defend itself. The title was also ported to PC without any effort put into its transfer aside from the drag and drop of Steam VR and other such plugins that were needed to play in VR mode. This was done in such a lazy manner that there is actually 3 copies of the title within the game's Steam folder. In effect, this title takes up 3 times more space than is necessary. Control schemes and instructions for the title are still in mobile format, which is even found in the tutorial. This title seems more like the framework of a strategy game than a finished product. It reeks of being a mobile port in every conceivable way, from the way the UI behaves to the way the surrounding starship interior environment warps as you look around. As far as price versus content is concerned, I'm completely baffled as to what this developer was thinking. The title, according to the developer's own website, was listed as free and $4.99 to unlock the full game on mobile VR, yet on Steam the price is a whopping $14.99. There is nothing there to make that price reasonable when comparing it to much more complete titles that sell for similar or much lower prices, or free for that matter. In fact, this title should be free. I can't see anyone being happy about spending anything more than $2, as this title is not made for PC VR in any way, shape, or form. For this and much more, I do not recommend SkyLight, from the reasons I've already mentioned to the lack of integrity concerning what appears to be a majority of fake positive reviews on the title's Steam page, made by people who got the title for free, with most of them having less than 30 minutes in the game, to several YouTubers whom I will refrain from naming peddling this garbage as the best VR strategy game available. Got one question: how much are they paying you? I too received this key for free from the dev, but I'm not going to tell you guys this is a great game for you to waste your hard-earned cash to find out otherwise. Out of all the reviews on the Steam page, only one happens to be negative. I want to clarify something here. I don't give negative reviews lightly. I don't give titles a bad review just because I don't happen to like it. I judge a game on several factors that have nothing to do with me personally enjoying it. This particular title fits in the same category as many we call asset flips. I'm not saying that the developer McNeill's an asset flipper, as the man clearly does make decent games for mobile. He's been a contender in many VR game jams and won the grand prize in one and awards on others. One of his award-winning games, Tactera, is where the proverbial flip comes from. It is quite evident he stripped Tactera to its basics and added spaceships for a quick and dirty mobile VR game. This shows me he got lazy and nothing more. I do not take pride in hurting indie devs, as those are the very individuals HelixxVR goes out of its way to promote. But it's games like this that have the opposite effect on the indie market, where the actions of one reflect on the others. For this, SkyLight belongs on the VR Wall of Shame, accompanied by the likes of the KVR and other trash bag shovelware titles. Garbage like this is what hurts the VR market. This overpriced mobile port should have not been placed on Steam before properly converting it to PC VR. It should not have a price on it without having the AI aspect properly made. For those of you who promoted this title without first playing it, or knowingly lied about liking it, you know who you are and you should be ashamed. Your fans watch you because they trust you and your opinion. As for you, McNeill, we at HelixxVR have nominated your title SkyLight for our HelixxVR Wall of Shame. You will be notified if you win the grand prize. If you want to check this game out further, I provided a link in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you didn't, well, hit that other button. If you want to see more videos like this one, please support us here at HelixxVR and press that subscribe button. It won't cost you a thing and the videos are free too. Don't forget to check out our other great videos on YouTube at HelixxVR, which is the channel you're on right now. The other guys work hard to create some really great content, live feeds, and giveaways on a daily basis. For more stuff HelixxVR, check the description below. Until next time, guys, this is Flag, heading back to the basement. See ya.